Episode 49, Prophecy and Property. Joseph Smith Consolidates Power. Welcome to the Hidden and Distorted History of the Church series, where we will be looking at the historical aspects of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as the Mormons. In this series, I will try and inform those unaware of the true facts of Mormon history. Recap. Last week we delved into Joseph Smith's rise to power as the sole trustee and trust for the Church. We uncover yet another instance of Joseph's plural marriages, this time his unconventional union with Louisa Beeman. We expose Smith's manipulative tactics as he promoted Nauvoo, a malarial and yellow fever-ridden wasteland. We close with Joseph's strategic siphoning of church funds to line the pockets of his family and friends. This week's episode dives straight into the chaos. Joseph Smith prophesied the death of Governor Lilburn Boggs. Did it come true? Or was it yet another miss? He hails the Book of Mormon as the cornerstone of the Church, while trying to conceal its original manuscript and witness accounts, and claim it is the most correct book on earth. Meanwhile, Smith adds Zina Diantha Huntington Jacobs to his growing list of plural wives. Don't miss the shocking twists and hypocrisies in this episode. Part 1. Prophesying or planning a death? In 1841, Joseph Smith prophesied that Governor Lilburn Boggs of Missouri would meet a violent death within 1 year. This prediction stirred controversy, as it was seen as both politically charged and potentially dangerous, given the ongoing tensions between Mormons and the state of Missouri. Several early Mormon leaders, including John C. Bennett and William Law, claimed that Joseph Smith had made the prophecy about Boggs before the shooting. Some of these testimonies came from those who were either close to Smith or later became opponents of him, which adds complexity to the narrative. These individuals recalled that Smith had spoken specifically of Boggs' violent death, but details vary on whether it was phrased as a divine prophecy or a general prediction. Various diaries by Wilford Woodruff, Orson Pratt, and historical accounts from the period, such as Joseph's own journal, including non-Mormons, make reference to Smith's prophecy, though none provide a clear, first-hand record of the event. Some Mormons at the time believed Smith had the power to foretell the future, so they treated such statements as prophetic. However, critics of Smith, including many non-Mormon historians, have cast doubt on whether the prophecy was ever explicitly stated by Smith or if it was a retroactive interpretation of his earlier comments. Smith had long been a vocal critic of the governor, accusing him of ordering the forced removal and mistreatment of the Mormon community. The prophecy gained further attention in 1842, when Governor Boggs was indeed shot and seriously wounded in what appeared to be an assassination attempt. While Boggs survived the attack, the incident stirred public interest and suspicion, with some pointing to the 1841 prophecy as evidence of Smith's foreknowledge. However, the exact nature of Smith's involvement in the event, and whether the prophecy was intended to suggest direct involvement or merely foretell a future violent act, remains unclear. It is one of several instances of prophetic statements attributed to Smith, some of which were seen as fulfilling or being manipulated in hindsight to appear fulfilled. The available evidence does suggest Smith made the prediction, but how it is interpreted, whether as a genuine prophecy or part of a broader narrative, depends on the perspective of the reader. Part 2. The Cornerstone of the Church, the Book of Mormon. In 1841, Joseph Smith made a statement to the apostles that the Book of Mormon is the keystone of our religion. This declaration is significant because it underscores the central role the Book of Mormon played in the theology and identity of the early LDS Church. It was a defining statement about the foundational nature of the Book of Mormon in the belief system of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The specific statement about the Book of Mormon being the keystone of the LDS faith is generally traced back to a discourse Joseph Smith gave in 1841. This was not just a casual remark, but rather a central part of Smith's teaching to the apostles at the time. The phrase itself was later cited by various early LDS leaders and scholars, reinforcing the notion that the Book of Mormon was viewed as the most important scripture for the restoration of the gospel. The history of the Church, which was compiled and edited by B.H. Roberts and contains first-hand accounts and writings from Joseph Smith and other early leaders, provides context for this statement. In Volume 4 of the History of the Church, a section describes Smith addressing the role of the Book of Mormon and its significance in relation to the LDS faith. The statement about the Book of Mormon as the Keystone is found in this volume, emphasizing that Smith saw the book as not only foundational, but as a unique and essential scripture that established the truth of the LDS restoration. Excerpt from History of the Church, Volume 4. Smith is reported as saying, "The Book of Mormon is the keystone of our religion, and a man would get nearer to God by abiding by its precepts than by any other book." This passage reflects Smith's strong assertion about the Book of Mormon being central to the faith, implying that it was a cornerstone of understanding the true doctrine and principles of the restored gospel. Wilford Woodruff, who recorded many of Joseph Smith's discourses, noted similar teachings in his own journal entries from around this time. Woodruff's journal, which often documented Smith's public and private discourses, reinforces the notion that Joseph Smith taught the apostles that the Book of Mormon was the keystone of their religion. Brigham Young and other early leaders also repeated this idea, further cementing it in the doctrine of the LDS Church. Brigham Young, in particular, would later emphasize the idea that the Book of Mormon was foundational for understanding the restoration of the gospel. In speeches during the 1850s, Brigham Young would frequently refer to the Book of Mormon as the keystone of LDS theology, echoing Joseph Smith's earlier pronouncement. This further highlighted the idea that the Book of Mormon was not just another scripture, but the central text upon which all other doctrines rested. Joseph Smith's declaration about the Book of Mormon as the keystone of the LDS religion is foundational for understanding the role of the book within Mormon theology. The term keystone suggests that just as the keystone holds an arch together, the Book of Mormon holds together the doctrines and practices of the LDS Church. The statement also emphasizes the importance of the Book of Mormon in distinguishing the LDS faith from other Christian denominations, presenting it as a unique and essential scripture for understanding God's will. Theologically, Smith's statement underscores the idea that the Book of Mormon is not just supplementary to the Bible, but a primary text in the restoration of Christian truth. This belief became a cornerstone of Mormonism, suggesting that adherence to the teachings in the Book of Mormon was necessary for salvation and a closer relationship with God. It reinforced the idea that the Book of Mormon, along with the Bible, formed the foundation of Mormon scripture. Part 3. I have had trouble enough with this thing. On October 2, 1841, Joseph Smith made the controversial decision to place the original Book of Mormon manuscript, the witness signatures, and other significant items in the cornerstone of the Nauvoo house. This event has been historically significant, as it led to the near destruction of these critical items, which would have provided important first-hand evidence of the Book of Mormon's origins and the testimonies of its witnesses. Ebenezer Robinson, a former printer and early church member, recorded Joseph Smith's actions and words regarding the placement of the items in the cornerstone. According to Robinson, Joseph Smith commented, "I have had trouble enough with this thing," referring to the Book of Mormon and the items associated with it. Robinson's account suggests that Smith was weary of the controversy and difficulties surrounding the Book of Mormon and the associated testimony of its witnesses. In Ebenezer Robinson's account of October 2, 1841, he writes, Joseph Smith said, "I have had trouble enough with this thing," and then proceeded to place the original manuscript of the Book of Mormon, along with the signatures of the witnesses and other documents, in the cornerstone of the Nauvoo house. Robinson's record is crucial because it provides insight into Smith's personal feelings about the Book of Mormon and the challenges he faced regarding the book and its creation. It also reflects Joseph's frustration with the controversy and accusations surrounding the Book of Mormon and its origins. The Nauvoo house was a building project undertaken by Joseph Smith and the early saints in Nauvoo, Illinois. The structure was intended to serve as a hotel for visitors and a gathering place for church members. The act of placing the original manuscript and the witness signatures into its cornerstone was symbolic, but it also reflected the spiritual and theological significance that Smith attributed to the Book of Mormon. The decision to place these items in the cornerstone of the Nauvoo house is seen by many as a way for Smith to safeguard the Book of Mormon's original record, though the action ultimately led to the destruction or loss of these important items. As the cornerstone was later disturbed and the items were damaged or lost, the act became a point of contention in church history, as it prevented future generations from accessing the original materials that could have served as crucial evidence for the authenticity of the Book of Mormon. The exact fate of the original manuscript and witness signatures is unclear. It is widely believed that when the cornerstone of the Nauvoo house was later opened, the items had either been destroyed by the passage of time or had deteriorated beyond recognition due to their exposure to the elements. The destruction of these items is considered a significant loss, as they might have provided more direct evidence of the Book of Mormon's creation, especially in regard to the witness testimony. Some church members and historians speculate that the placement of the manuscript in the cornerstone was intended to be an act of reverence, while others suggest it was motivated by Smith's frustration with the mounting controversies surrounding the Book of Mormon. In any case, the loss of these items has contributed to the mystery and ongoing debate about the Book of Mormon's origins. Part 4. Another wife yet again. On October 27, 1841, Joseph Smith married Zina Diantha Huntington Jacobs in Nauvoo, Illinois. This marriage is significant due to the complex and controversial circumstances surrounding it, including Smith's persistent pursuit of Zena, despite her initial rejection, and the later involvement of Brigham Young in marrying her as well. Initially, Zina Huntington had rejected Joseph Smith's proposal. She married Henry Jacobs in March 1841, well before her marriage to Smith. The decision to marry Henry was her choice, but it appears that Joseph Smith's earlier interest in her persisted. According to later accounts from Zena's descendants and other early LDS sources, Zena's marriage to Henry Jacobs was her choice, but Joseph Smith did not give up on his pursuit. In fact, Joseph's actions are said to have included further attempts to convince her to marry him, claiming that it was a divine command. After Zena married Henry Jacobs, Smith reportedly told her that he had received a visit from an angel who threatened him with a drawn sword if he did not obey and marry Zena. Smith's assertion that an angel had commanded him to marry Zena, coupled with the angel's threat to take his life if he disobeyed, is a central part of the narrative surrounding their marriage. Smith's claim of angelic visitation is consistent with other similar claims from his later polygamous marriages, where he often invoked divine authority as the basis for such unions. In later accounts, Zina Huntington recounted that Smith's persistence, combined with his claim of divine instruction, led her to reluctantly comply with the marriage. Zena herself, in private testimonies, confirmed that Smith had described the angel's visit, which led to her marriage to him. After Joseph Smith's death, Brigham Young would also marry Zina Jacobs, making her one of his plural wives. This was part of Brigham Young's broader practice of plural marriage after Smith's death, where he married many of Smith's former wives or women who had been involved in polygamous marriages with Smith. Zena's subsequent marriage to Brigham Young added a further layer to the complex relationships within early LDS polygamy. Brigham Young's marriage to Zena, part of his larger effort to solidify his position as the leader of the LDS Church and establish the practice of plural marriage as a central tenet. Zena's transition from Smith's wife to Young's wife symbolizes the complex and often controversial nature of early Mormon marital practices, especially regarding plural marriage. How could it be that Young then married Zena after the death of Joseph, if eternal marriages were a religious matter, not sexual? According to LDS doctrine, she was sealed to Joseph Smith for all time and eternity, and a woman may only be sealed to one man. The accounts of Zina Huntington's marriages have been documented in various diaries, journals, and affidavits from early Mormon leaders and members. These records, including those from Eliza R. Snow and Heber C. Kimball, support the narrative of Smith's persistent pursuit of Zena and the angelic command that he said led to their marriage. The marriage between Joseph Smith and Zina Jacobs is a key example of Joseph Smith's practice of polygamy and his use of divine authority to justify his marriages. The concept of angelic visitation, particularly with the drawn sword, was not an isolated incident in Smith's polygamous marriages. Smith's claim to be following divine instructions, often involving threats from heavenly beings, was a common justification for his polygamous practices, which remained controversial both within and outside of the LDS community. Part 5. The Most Correct Book on Earth? November 28, 1841, Joseph Smith declared to the 12 apostles that the Book of Mormon was the most correct of any book on earth, and called it the keystone of his religion. But here's the problem. This most correct book had already undergone significant changes. By 1841, the Book of Mormon wasn't the pristine, divinely dictated text Smith claimed it to be. Edits had been made, grammatical fixes, doctrinal shifts, even changes to key phrases, and yet Smith boldly claimed its perfection. Let that sink in. The book had been rewritten, yet Smith declared it the most correct book on earth. Now here's where it gets interesting. Smith himself once criticized the Bible, saying that years of edits, mistranslations, and meddling had stripped it of its holiness. He justified his own Joseph Smith translation by claiming the Bible was no longer trustworthy. But was the Book of Mormon immune to this same issue? If edits and changes could invalidate the Bible's holiness, why not the Book of Mormon? The hypocrisy is hard to ignore. Smith condemned one scripture for being edited while elevating another that had been altered under his own hand. Was the Book of Mormon truly divine, or was it just another tool in Smith's arsenal to assert control over his followers? The most correct book on earth, or a reflection of Smith's ever-changing ambitions? You decide. Please watch for future videos, and thank you so kindly for watching. This is the Ex-Mormon Informant signing off for the day.